Hi, this is Eli Kranzberg, and welcome to this series on FL Studio. In this first video, we're going to look at the basic concepts that you need to get started. Now, when you boot up FL Studio for the first time, you'll see a window that looks something like this. Probably a demo song will load up. But to start with, you want to open up your settings and make sure you have your audio and MIDI equipment hooked up properly. So we can go under Options here and go to Audio Settings, or we can use the shortcut F10. And that'll bring this up. Now, it's important to select the proper device audio interface that you're going to be using, and you can select from the menu here. Yours will look slightly different than mine. ASIO drivers work best, and if you don't have an ASIO-compatible audio interface, you can use the ASIO for All driver that installs with FL Studio. For me, I'm going to be using this FL Studio ASIO driver. One important setting to be aware of on this page is the buffer length in the ASIO panel. And basically, the smaller the buffer is, the more quickly FL Studio will read and write audio to and from your hard drive, and it'll happen quickly, so there won't be any delay or latency from when you either play a note on your keyboard or play into a microphone and when you hear it back, but at the cost of higher CPU performance. And the higher the buffer is, the longer it takes for it to work through what's in its buffer, so we hear a delay in what we're putting in and what we're hearing back, but it's less taxing on the CPU. So you'll have to figure out what works best on your settings by trial and error with your system. I'm going to leave mine at 512 for now. So let's close that up and just start talking about some of the basic concepts of how FL Studio works. Now, the basic workflow is we create patterns, and then we take these patterns and arrange the patterns into playlists. So we have two main modes of working here. We have pattern mode, which we work in when we're working on patterns. And those are kind of like the building blocks, the pieces of music that we're creating. And then we can switch to song mode with this button over here. And that's when we work with the patterns, assembling them in here in the playlist to be played back as a song. I'm going to put it back to pattern mode for the moment. Now, the FL Studio desktop uses multiple windows, and we just want to look at the basics of each window. We have the playlist window, and that's this window over here where we assemble the patterns, and we can hide or close it with this button over here, this shortcut button, and we can also use F5. Now, the heart and soul of creating patterns is the channel rack and step sequencer, and that's what we're looking at over here. And this one can be toggled with this button over here, or the shortcut F6. Now, the channel rack holds all the instruments that create sound, and it also holds the generators that control automation. And in this channel rack here, we see an instrument for kick, another one for clap, another one for hi-hats, and another for snare. So the idea that makes FL Studio so powerful and unique, that's different from a lot of other sequencers, is that patterns aren't limited to a single instrument. They can access any instrument that's loaded in the channel rack. So I can load up many more instruments here and just use whichever or however many or few I want in any patterns that I'm creating. Now, we enter data, we create these patterns using either step sequences. We're using these steps over here, and we can adjust the length. We'll look at all this in more detail in future videos. Or the piano roll. Now, to get to the piano roll, we can use this button over here, and it's another graphic interface way of editing data using Brush Tool and other various tools to generate notes. And we can also use the shortcut F7 to toggle that open or close. Now, other parts of the interface, we have a browser on the side here, which is used to browse not only song files, but many different criteria. We can browse here the current project. We can browse plugins. We can drag and drop and load them in all kinds of media files over here. We can toggle this open and closed with Alt F8 or with this button over here. So you can really maximize your screen workspace by only working with the windows that you want. Now, we have a mixer for mixing all the channels, and we can get to that from this icon over here. And it can be resized to take up as much or as little of the screen as you want. And you can toggle it with the shortcut F9. Now, there's also a hint bar over here, and you'll see as I move my mouse around, this displays a little description and shortcut for wherever I'm hovering my mouse over, so that's useful. And we can also always press F1 to call up context-sensitive online help that's based on the window that you're in. Now, a couple of little shortcuts to be aware of. We can control-click. Let me open the mixer to show you this. A couple of workflow things. We can control-click or click both mouse buttons for fine adjustments. So here, I'm making regular coarse adjustments, and with the control button down, I'm moving in smaller increments. And we can hold down the Shift key to override parameters snapping to default values. And that applies for any parameters in the interface. And if we want to snap back to a default value, we can either press the Alt key and click, and that'll snap it back, or we can press the middle mouse button, and that'll snap it back as well. Or we can right click and go reset, and that'll snap back too. I'm going to end off here, and we'll continue with more in the next video.